Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's September 30th, 2018. I'm up on the hugelkultur terrace up here right now, and it's time to turn the final turning of the small compost pile. I believe that this is the fifth, it may be the sixth, but it is probably the final turning. I thought it'd be good to just go over a couple of points when we're doing our composting. I try to maintain the pile at a temperature between 135 degrees and 160 degrees. Why do I want the temperatures to be that high? Well, that's the way that we can kill the seeds so that they're not going to germinate once the compost is finished, and so that the pathogens, whatever pathogens are there, have been neutralized as well. So therefore, the composting material, the finished material, is safe to be growing our vegetables or whatever else we want to grow in this compost material. It's really important when you look at this pile and you look up close, you'll still see some of the gross features of hay or little sticks or those materials. And therefore most people would say, geez, it's not finished, it's not 100% broken down. And my approach to doing composting is I don't want the material completely broken down into unrecognizable materials. I want to be able to look at it when I put it in my hand and separate it out and still be able to recognize some of the organic materials that are there. Those materials are going to be like prebiotics for all of the beneficial microbes that are in the compost as a result of doing the composting process. There's still food supplies there readily available that are devoid of pathogens. There aren't the bad bacteria there. There aren't the bad nematodes there. There aren't the seeds that can germinate. And how are we certain of that? Well, we achieve the optimal temperature being, I think it's 131 degrees. I always want to go 135 degrees and turn the pile when we're getting close to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that way I can rest pretty much assured that we've taken care of all the negative features in the material that we use to do composting. So how do I know? Well, if we go to the outside surface of the pile, so the top of the pile is warmer than the base of the pile. The inner part of the pile is warmer than the outer surface of the pile. And that's why we use these thermometers that are 3 foot long. Now, my situation isn't ideal. However, I'm always trying to get about 2/3 up in the pile to see what our temperatures actually are and try to be in at an optimal depth, 3 foot or further. Sometimes I dig in when I've got the really large piles and I put the thermometer basically buried into the pile. However, each time I turn the pile, I take the top and all of the sides out, and that goes into the center of the pile. Not really into the center of the pile because it's at the base. I strip the perimeter first and the top off first, and I put that in the base. Then what ends up happening is I take the rest of the material and I build on top of that pile. So that's getting heated up, not at the same temperature, because it's at the lower part of the pile as what goes on the upper part of the pile. The next time that the pile is turned, that stuff that's on the base ends up getting higher in the pile because the outer part has been laid down first, and then the rest of the material has been put on it. And by doing it a minimum of 5 turns or 6 turns, we're pretty much certain that that material has been in the upper third of the pile, with inside the pile, for being at least a week in the optimal temperature ranges, which is long enough at an optimal temperature. So it's temperature and duration of time that we want the material, all of the material, to achieve neutralization of seeds and pathogens. So I hope that makes sense. I thought I'd try to make sure. I know I've talked about this subject in the past a couple of years ago, but I thought it'd be worthwhile reviewing. So when I'm turning the pile, those are things I'm thinking about. where the material is going to be in the pile ultimately. And that's why it takes me time to maneuver around the piles. You'll see when I do the time lapse, you go back and look at the videos, you see the way that I'm actually piling it, and I'll go to different parts of the pile. And sometimes I've got older material or stickier material, like there's some vine material that's in this pile as well. And having stick-like material can actually, because that doesn't break down very quickly, when you're turning the pile, you can keep track of where that stick clumps of material is going. Is it at the base of the pile? Is it on the outside of the pile? Or is it in the upper third of the pile where you want it to be? So having some material that's more easily recognizable is really a good thing when you're doing it as well. And certainly we want to make sure we have adequate aeration and the appropriate amount of moisture in the pile as well. So I'll set up the GoPro camera and turn the pile, and then this is getting incorporated after, we'll give it a day or two to cool down some, and then it'll be incorporated in the beds and then covered for next spring for spring planting. So here we go. Well, I finished turning the compost probably half an hour or so ago, an hour ago, and the turning process went very well. The compost looks to the point where it is finished. Now again, there still is some of the material, all of the material hasn't been broken down by the microorganisms, but that isn't what I wanted. I wanted to make sure that I eliminated weed seeds and eliminated the pathogens, and I think we've adequately accomplished that mission. Previously, I had the large composting series. Well, I just finished using that yesterday in rebuilding garden beds in the eastern garden bed, eastern plot. And previously I had done added more compost to the western garden plot. And my goal with those garden plots is to really build up the soil material using compost to the point where they're going to be and maintained for the future. It's taken me a few years and gradually building up the beds bit by bit. And so this material will be going over into the eastern garden plots as well, or at least the majority of it will be. Probably all of it. So the process went very well, and I hope that this video has been somewhat informative, a reminder of the steps that I go through when I'm doing the composting. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. Give us a thumbs up if you think this video was of value. Share it with your friends. Hit that bell icon if you want to be notified when we post more videos. And certainly, folks, have a super fantastic day. Bye-bye now.